Welcome back for another college football video. This past weekend was week 10 of college football, and boy, was it a doozy. Some teams lost in the top 10, top 15. Some people won. I'm gonna have to get into it because my favorite team also lost, and it just wasn't a good feeling. But obviously, there's gonna be some fan bases that are gonna be up in outrages, and basically what happened this past weekend. And there were plenty of big games to be talked about. So the first game that we're going to talk about right now is Boise State. Boise State played San Diego State, and Ashton Jeanty has still been doing his thing. I mean, he's, if I'm not mistaken, they said he's projected to hit about 2,000 yards this college football season. And honestly, he's playing lower level competition, but just to see what he can do with that offense in that division, in that conference, man, it's pretty good. The Boise State Broncos beat San Diego State Aztecs, and honestly, I've never heard of San Diego State, but they beat them 56-24. So they did it in high fashion. I mean, put it on them. Beat the brakes off of them. I mean, they have to go back to the mechanics and figure out what they're going to do to regroup. But the Boise State Broncos pretty much dominated this entire game. Boise State does now sit at number 12 in the nation. And honestly, who saw this coming? Who saw this coming? They are now 7-1. So for San Diego State, Danny O'Neal went 14 for 30, so under 50%, 155 yards, 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Honestly, we could do it without the 2 interceptions. But when you're playing like a team like Boise State, who's rose out of the grave this year, you have to not make mistakes, and mistakes will cost you. And I'm sure that they did. Marquez Cooper went 16 for 94 and a touchdown, so he was their leading receiver. And then Cam Davis was their second leading receiver, having 5 carries for 24 yards on 4.8 yards per carry, so almost 5 yards a carry. I mean, they pretty much ran really good. I will say that Danny O'Neal did get sacked. He had negative 21 yards on the game. And then their leading performer and wide receiver, the leading wide receiver is Jordan Napier with 18 for 79 and a touchdown. The next leading receiver is Mekhi Shaw, 2 for 41 and a touchdown. So, both of them did pretty good for the San Diego State Aztecs, but Boise State was just too much to control. Let's go over to Boise State. Maddox Madison went 24 for 32, 307 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He came to play, put on the business, and that's what you get from him. Ashton Jeanty went 31 carries. He's getting 31 carries in college football. That's nasty work. And then getting almost 150 yards, the defensive line couldn't stop him. Linebackers didn't fill in their gaps. I can tell you, without watching the entire game, you could just go ahead and tell who played and who showed up. He mollywopped them. 2 touchdowns is crazy. They don't even need another running back. The other running back is just give him a break. I want to see how many plays he plays in. Like, for example, Travis Hunter plays both on offense and defense. How many plays does he play? They say he plays a lot on both sides of the ball. So how many plays does Ashton Jeanty actually play within a game? Because 31 carries is crazy work. Crazy work. You don't see people like that unless it's like Derrick Henry, and he's getting those type of carries in the NFL. Latrell Cappies went 6 for 90 and 3 touchdowns. So obviously, Madison threw the ball like none other. But like I said, San Diego State isn't a high competition team. We don't hear about them, honestly. So it'd be good to see who Boise State eventually plays within the playoffs, because the playoffs are, and we're going to talk about this within this video too. The CFP playoff bracket is now out, so if you can go see if your favorite team is currently slotted to play. Obviously, there's still like 3, maybe 4 games for some people left of college football to play. So some people are expecting each other to lose, or hoping, praying. Let's see who Boise State plays for the rest of the year. They are 7-1, with their only loss to Oregon. They play Nevada. I'm sure they'll win that game. They play SJSU. I'm sure they'll win that game. Wyoming, and then Oregon State might be their toughest challenge. But that's about it. So obviously, I think they have a clear way. As long as they win and win out very well, they have a great chance of making the playoffs. Because playoffs are only a couple weeks away, folks. Only a couple weeks away. Now, the next game that I want to talk about is Duke versus Miami. Duke versus Miami. And Miami always keeps these games close. We see this within this season. They keep the games really close, and then eventually they end up winning, or they end up just catching fire, absolute fire, and winning the game. But Miami did win. Miami is ranked number 4 in the nation at this point in time. They are still undefeated at the top of the ACC. And this is just surprising. Honestly, Cam Ward and the Miami Hurricanes are going to have a real big gut check because, well, they're going to have to play the ACC. Do they play the ACC championship? I'm not exactly sure how the playoff rankings and who gets a bye and who actually plays for the ACC championship and all of that stuff. But they're going to be in the top 4. They're going to be in the top 4. I can guarantee you that right now. And if they lose to somebody, I don't know who they're losing to. But they did beat the Duke Blue Devils 53-31. And let's talk about some of these stats. Malik Murphy went 25 for 41, high passing game. 325 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. I always tell you that interceptions will kill you. Any turnover, for that matter, will kill you. Will kill the game because you're giving the ball to the other side, and a lot of that gives them the chance to score. And I bet you, let's see, 9. Miami won by about 3 possessions, about 3 touchdowns. That's what interceptions would do to you. Not saying that they exactly scored on these specific plays, but still, they'll do it to you. Peyton Jones went 12 for 71, a touchdown. Star Thomas went 12 for 25. So they had about 100 yards worth of rushing in this game. So they weren't too one-dimensional. But Samir Hagans went 9 for 139 yards, 1 touchdown. He gave the business to that Hurricane defense, along with Jordan Moore, 5 for 75 and a touchdown. Peyton Jones went 3 for 61 and a touchdown. So he helped out wide receiving, and he helped out rushing. Moving on to Miami. Cameron Ward went 25 for 41, 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, and an interception. Honestly, he's probably, if not at the top of the Heisman votes at this point in time. I think he's really good. I think he's real calm and collected. And his demeanor is like another. I mean, just standing in the pocket like that, the presence of Cam Ward in that pocket is what should be recorded by any youth that are wanting to go within collegiate football, because man, does he show some stuff. They didn't really have a number 1 running back within this game because they divvied it up. Their 2 top running backs was Damian Martinez for 11 for 66 and Mark Fletcher Jr. 12 for 65, and he also had a touchdown. Their leading receiver was Xavier Restrepo with 8 for 148 yards and 3 touchdowns. If I'm not mistaken, he actually put on a record within this game. I don't exactly remember what the record was. I'd have to go back and find it, but I think he did. But yeah, did he not get hurt in this game too? I think he did. I need to start making these games on Saturday night when the games are done. But all in all, Miami did win by a substantial margin. Quite literally 22 points. Just about 3 possessions, 3 scores at least. So let's see who Miami has for the rest of the year. They have Georgia Tech, they have Wake Forest, and they have Syracuse. The way Syracuse is looking right now in Common Core, I don't think they don't have no chance to beat Miami. I think the biggest chance that Miami will lose is Georgia Tech and Haynes King. I think that's their quarterback name. But they do play at 12 p.m. on Saturday, November 9th. So that'll be a good game. I definitely will be watching that game, hopefully. There may be another game that's going on. But like I said, Miami, I think they're at least going to be in the top 4. I'm not exactly sure if they would move up any, because you have Georgia and Ohio State, Penn. You have all these teams that could possibly get back into the top 4, depending on where you sit, who you play for the rest of the year. But Oregon is sitting number 1, and we're going to talk about them later too. They had They had an easy win against Michigan, and that's another fall that we have to talk about. Air Force played Army, so it was the battle of the military. It was the battle of the military. Army did win 20-3. The Air Force is God dog. They're 1-7 now. Air Force is 1-7. And the Black Knights are still undefeated, and they are ranked 18. I think it'd be very funny or very cool to see if the Army Black Knights, will be in playoff contention. I don't think they would have such a strong of a schedule to make that push. Ooh, if they play if they win against Notre Dame, which I don't think they will, they might get in. That's something to watch out for, folks. Army plays Notre Dame, and if they win, oh man, down goes Notre Dame. They also play UTSA, so I guess that's the University of San Antonio, and they do play Navy. So they have one rank to win, so they're making their final push. Obviously, this game isn't really nothing to talk about, but it is something to be mentioned because they are still undefeated. Ole Miss played Arkansas, and Ole Miss is one of those teams that have been down and up all year. Obviously, they have 2 losses, but they have a high-powered offense. 63-31, they beat the Arkansas Razorbacks, and well, I'm not too fond of Ole Miss. Like I feel like if you put it on your chips, you'd be absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. Let's look at some numbers. I do respect Jackson Dart. He's probably one of the top quarterbacks in the nation as of this moment. I still have Shador above them all. And we're going to get into Georgia and Carson Beck. And Jackson Dart went 25 for 31, 515 yards, and 6 touchdowns. I feel like once he plays like a ranked, they have played ranked teams. And it has shown because they have lost. It goes to show that once you play a decent level of competition, you're not putting up these type of numbers. 515. I mean, like last year though, they played LSU and Ole Miss did play, and it was like none other. I think Jackson Dart and Jaden Daniels had ungodly numbers that we haven't seen within years. But Jackson Dart was also their leading rusher, 10 for 47. I think that's outrageous. If your quarterback is leading receiver, unless you're Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, or Cam Newton, who is not in the league, that is crazy. Absolutely crazy. Or Kyler Murray, somebody like that. Jordan Watkins went 8 for 54 yards and 5 touchdowns. Maybe he was the one instead of the other guy that I talked about. I don't remember. But Caden Lee went 5 for 127. Look, all their wide receivers pretty much have had about 100 or above 50 yards within this game. So the only thing that we could take from this game is they mollywopped Arkansas, and Arkansas was. It's crazy though because Arkansas beat Tennessee. That would be a good game. Ole Miss versus Tennessee. I don't think they play. I have to see. Malachi Singleton for the Razorbacks went 11 for 14, 207 yards and a touchdown, and then Taylor Green went 10 for 14 and 158 yards. I think they have to figure out who's going to be at quarterback. Obviously, they had big discrepancies between the both of them, but you got to pick one guy. You can't put both of them in. Rashad Dubson went 12 for 49 and a touchdown. Malachi Singleton went 8 for 44. So they had subpar running game, obviously, as you could tell by the statistics. But Andrew Armstrong for the wide receiver core went 6 for 135 yards. Luke Has went 5 for 77 and a touchdown. So although Arkansas did put up 31 points, it was an offensive onslaught for Ole Miss. Let's look to see who Ole Miss has because they are currently ranked 16 within the nation. Ole Miss lost to Georgia, and they also lost to who else did they lose to? They lost to somebody else, and they lost to Alabama. So they lost to Georgia and Alabama, which obviously, nope, I lied. What team is this? Okay, that's the wrong one. So then I have to find. Georgia. Oh, they lost to Kentucky. And they lost to LSU. So, scratch that. Ole Miss has lost to Kentucky, and they lost to LSU. Honestly, I don't think they should have lost to LSU. I'm not really too fond of LSU either. But this just goes to show that the transfer portal did wonders in good areas and bad areas, positive and negative, light and dark, because the playing ground is even. The playground is even. You're not just going to Alabama to be seen on TV. You can go anywhere and be seen on TV. It's outrageous. And you can get money as well. It's crazy. But it just goes to show that the level of competition is scattered throughout the nation. Throughout the nation. So one team isn't going to be the best team. Alabama is no longer the best team. Georgia is no longer the best team. All these players have great talent, and then you could always transfer if you want to move. But the remaining games for Ole Miss is Georgia, Florida, and Mississippi State. I think the way that Florida gave it, no, I lied. Ole Miss is going to beat Florida by 30, and Ole Miss is going to beat Mississippi State by 32. The one game that I do and I will watch is Georgia versus Ole Miss. Hopefully, Ole Miss's offense is better than Georgia's defense. But we can see that the way that Georgia played Texas. The Georgia defense played Texas. I don't know, man. That Ole Miss offense might be going through a rough time. They play 3:30 this Saturday, so I'll be watching that game as well. But Ole Miss is ranked number 16. Let's see if they can make that final push. Obviously, they've lost twice. University of Kentucky, LSU, also they've lost to. So therefore, they gotta wait. They gotta wait. Some teams are probably gonna have to lose. Some things are gonna have to change. But Vanderbilt played Auburn. And obviously we know Auburn ain't no good team. But Auburn is 3-6. Vanderbilt is currently ranked. The Vanderbilt Commodores, honestly, I think after they played Alabama, because I think Alabama was the number 1 team in the nation, they should have been ranked then, if they weren't already. Vanderbilt is 6-3. I don't necessarily see them making a playoff run, but they beat the Auburn Tigers 17-7. Diego Pavia, 9 for 22, 143 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That type of quarterback play will not win you any playoff games. Go ahead and say it. They didn't really have any consistency within the running back core. I mean, Cedric Alexander was their leading running back with 10 carries for 28 yards. And then their leading receiver had 31. So, obviously, this was a poop game. Poop, poop, poop. Diaper, poop. Pee, poop. It was nasty. I'm glad I probably didn't watch this game because I would have been very upset. Those numbers are terrible. And some people say sometimes you do have to watch the game. At times I don't have the time to watch every game, but you could look at the statistics and tell what happened sometimes. But then sometimes statistics do not tell you the entire story. So always, always, always make sure you check the statistics with highlights, or you can go back and watch the game. Let's see. Oregon played Michigan, and obviously I expected Oregon to defeat Michigan because Michigan isn't a good team. I will go through Oregon's statistics. Dylan Gabriel went 22 for 34, 294 yards, 1 touchdown. Michigan isn't even ranked at this point, neither their offense, defense, or coaching ownership either. Jordan James went 23 for 117 yards and a touchdown. Willington had 2 touchdowns as well, and Dylan Gabriel also had 1 rushing touchdown too. So all their points came from rushing. And then their leading scorer was Treshawn Holden, 6 for 149 yards. He had a pretty good day, if I do say so myself, and Dylan Gabriel did spread the ball around. Oregon is still undefeated as of right now. The last games that they do play is Maryland, Washington, and Wisconsin. So, therefore, they are staying at the top. 1,000%. It's going to be great to see those playoff uniforms within Oregon. I think that'll be really good if they have a little P or something like that. I'm sure Nike will give them or accommodate them with something worth seeing. Texas Tech played Iowa State, and Iowa State was defeated because this was a upset. The Texas Raiders were 6-3. Iowa State is now 7-1. Therefore, they moved back. I don't know. I think they were 12 last time I saw them, or somewhere in that vicinity. But they are ranked number 17 now. Let's see who they play the rest of the year. The rest of the year, they play Kansas, Cincinnati, Utah, Kansas State. They're going to be hoping that people lose. I will say that. Moving on. Okay, for the last game within part 1 of college football, week 10, Kansas State played Houston. Houston upset them as well, beating them 24-19. And I do like Kansas State quarterback. I think he's a very good player, Avery Johnson. He went 23 for 39, 238 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Obviously, we don't need to flame him about the interceptions, but I think he was very good, and they're still ranked as well. Their leading receiver was DJ Giddens, 17 for 50 and a touchdown. And then we have Jace Brown, 3 for 86. So, I mean, let's see Houston's numbers. They were probably just outplayed, honestly. They were probably just outplayed. That's going to wrap it up for College Week 10 Part 1. Come back for Part 2. I have plenty more games to talk about, whether it's Georgia, Clemson, and more to come. So stay tuned.